also stronger to tail. This is the radar that we use to measure the vertical wind inside tornadoes. It's of the size of a briefcase, it's a phased array, 2 antenna radar. So one is emitting and the other one is receiving. It's about 2.8 centimeter, 2.9 centimeter wavelength. It's low wind X-band radar. And for those that don't understand radar, it operates similar to a police gun. When you're going down the road, they'll shoot a beam at the vehicle and it comes back and they can assess the speed change of the Doppler shift. And the same goes with tornadoes, but instead of vehicles, it's all individual water droplets and dirt particles that are spinning around horizontally, also lifting straight up into tornadoes. So this works the same way, and I'm not a radar guy. I did take Dr. Werman's radar course in graduate school, but I'll let our engineers handle that, so we can focus on driving into the tornadoes. But I'll show you some data that we collected with this radar inside that tornado in Minnesota. And the video is right there at the top. Also from June 17th, ironically 1 year later. And the Discovery Channel, we didn't have a good 8 episode last year. We kind of peaked a little bit early, and they extended it about a week. Probably because the previous season they also extended, and then June 17th ended up being the 8th episode. And just by chance, June 17th again resulted in tornadoes, but that's something that's definitely not going to happen year after year. So I hope they don't depend on that June 17th day. The chances of that happening on the same day are really slim. But that was our best intercept of the year in terms of the data that we collected. The tornado wasn't ideal because it did cause a lot of damage in northern Minnesota. And I'll be going up there next month to do a charity talk for Medina, which was a town that sustained significant damage from that EF4 tornado. And I'll show you a video from that day to see just how powerful it was. But a wedge tornado that's over a mile wide like that, you're inside for 2 or 3 minutes, especially one that's moving at about 30 miles per hour. So they're a lot more scary to intercept than the skinnier ones that I showed you earlier. And this video is from the follow vehicle, so you'll be able to see the Dominator in action as we're intercepting. And the follow vehicle has a laptop. They're tracking the probe as we launch and also making sure that the radar is working properly. If you see a wall cloud like that approaching you, you should definitely be underground because that thing right there, you know it's going to put down a massive tornado. And you'll really see the upward motion inside the tornado as it's going, and there's suction forces spinning around. You can see there's not only horizontal wind, but a lot of vertical motion. Right there you can see it pretty well, but later on when they're more strong, they're now in upward motion. They were backing up to take this. We were waiting just to the north of this, on the other side of that grove of trees, shooting air cannon probes. I'll show you pictures and video from that a little bit later. But it'll split into multiple suction vortices, each with intense vertical velocity. And the farmer that lives out there to the right, he helped us recover from our parachute probe. He told us that some of his farmhands were actually in that field, laying on their stomach, watching the tornado go by. They were flying, basically. So we're waiting just down that road, the east-west road, looking southwest of the tornado, north-northeast. Really see the upward motion of those. Tornado like this is really difficult to intercept. They're moving all over the place. It's difficult to line them up. You'll see the Dominator here in a second. We're inside that vortex right there, shooting our parachute probe straight up into the tornado and measure burst velocity with our radar. That one was pretty good. It didn't cause too much damage, a little bit of tree damage here and there. We didn't get hit by a suction vortex that time. And that tornado continues to move north and merge with the main circulation further west. And that's when it expanded into a 1.3-mile wide wedge. Over a mile wide at that point, and the Dominator up this road about 5 miles. That's when we had our intercept just after the shot. Fortunately, the tornado was doing damage at this time because we're west. This is later on, after our main intercept. See, we already had our anCorder ripped off earlier. These gunners did it sliding across the ground to be scary. We lost the edge by this point. And that's a satellite tornado that's rotating around the main one. But inside that tornado, we measured a 200-mile-per-hour wind and straight up right above the vehicle with that briefcase-sized radar that I just showed you. And before I show you that data, I'll show you a video of the tornado in northern South Dakota, the one where the Dominator looks like a little ant next to it. And this is the same one that was throwing combines out, ripped up the high-tension power line, but thankfully didn't hit anything directly, so nobody was hurt by this. But it's one of the most beautiful yet violent tornadoes I've ever seen. You can hear the show being filmed too. Our camera guy will do what's called on-the-fly interviews where we'll ask some questions and you can hear those ongoing in the background here in a little bit. At first it was a little hard getting used to back in 2008, but we've worked with the same camera guy in our vehicle for 3 seasons, so he's one of our best friends and he's almost as passionate about storm chasing as we are now. This one was also almost a mile wide wedge, which means that it's wider than it's tall. We saw a bunch of wedges in 2010. I've never seen this many in my whole entire 13 years of storm chasing like this. It's a shallow lake on the inside. We put the Dominator inside one of those shallow lakes a little bit after this. Almost had to spend the night in the vehicle. Saying to go in, I was really hoping Cole wouldn't do it. Thankfully, he didn't take me up on that. But you can see that right side, there's really intense motion inside that tornado, probably in that side. You can even see some upward motion in there as well. And then sinking motion on the back side of the tornado, which we're also trying to measure with the radar. And it was just sitting there, almost stationary, just digging a hole in the ground. Then the road really deteriorated. They had a bunch of snow in South Dakota, a bunch of rain, and we hit a rock just after the tornado we were seeing. The vehicle shot off to the left to bury the nose in one of those shallow lakes. Thankfully, a farmer was really nice and pulled us out. I didn't see that one at first. We saved the tornado that could have been intercepted. Thanks to that ATV. We easily could have intercepted that one if the roads weren't too bad. finances arrived really late for last season, so we didn't have them designed until the night before May 22nd. So we were in Mississippi, getting our whole air cannon system mounted on there, and drove the whole entire night from Tupelo, Mississippi, up to northern South Dakota to see this tornado. And we were supposed to meet up with the pro team. They were soldering some pieces on, and we couldn't rendezvous with them because we had no cell phone connection up there. And that was what I was doing right there at the end, just trying to come up with a rendezvous point. They actually got past the tornado by accident. We're really mad at them for that afterward. But thankfully, we rallied after that and then got all our equipment mounted in time for the June 17th tornado. And here's the path of that tornado. You can see it was a really long track. It was on the ground for over an hour. And I put this together based on the tax damage survey, the Great Forest National Weather Service, and also the video. And the intercept point was on that east-west road out of Parker's Prairie. The first intercept point was a multiple vortex. And the second intercept was right at the tail end of the EF4 damage. That's where it measured the vertical wind of 200 miles per hour. And unfortunately, there was a fatality just to the southwest at that point. So this tornado was not ideal for research because it did cause loss of life and property and had huge chunks of debris flying around in it. And this is the radar data that we collected inside that tornado. And during this whole entire time, we were dropped to the ground inside the eastern side of the wedge. A barn blew up to our left, and a piece of debris hit our anemometer and saw it get sucked into the tornado. So unfortunately, we didn't have horizontal wind for the intercept, but we didn't have the vertical wind from the radar. And interestingly, you can see that it came in pulses, even though the horizontal wind was continuous. And the strongest wind velocity was up near 200 miles per hour. And I think that they have these pulses because of those suction vortices rotating around the top of the vehicle, or the tornado vortex expanding and contracting with time. But we'll have to intercept many more tornadoes to try to see if this pattern is consistent. And not only wedges, but tornadoes of different shapes too, in different parts of the life cycle. Like when they're roping out, when they're first developing, and it may be that roping out tornadoes have more downward motion than upward motion. But in this case, it was really strong velocities, and they weren't comparable in scale to the horizontal wind, because the damage survey showed that the horizontal winds were estimated at 175 miles per hour. So at least in this case, the theory is accurate. And go back a bit. This is our air cannon array that we use to shoot parachute probes into the tornado. So in addition to measuring the horizontal winds with our anemometer on the roof and the vertical winds with the radar, we're also launching parachute probes into the tornado with basically their glorified potato guns, but powered by compressed air. They're a lot of fun. We use this big red button in the detonator to launch them, and I'm not allowed to press this because I get a little overexcited. If you launch the probe too early, the outside of the tornado, you get sinking motion, they get shot into the ground. But you have to be inside the funnel where you have that intense upward motion, because the parachute probes are designed to go up about 50 feet, where then the updraft picks them up and carries them inside the circulation. So we have Chris hit the red button. He's a lot more calm, and his heart rate slows down inside tornadoes. And, he's good at that for sure. And these are the probes that we use to launch. These are actually ones that we drop on a remote controlled aircraft. I'll show you that next. But unfortunately, the FAA has grounded our aerial attack. But that's a good thing because this motivates the design of the air cannon. But we just shrunk down the size of those and we load them manually. And as you're driving into the tornado, just hit that red button and launch them right in. But it sounds kind of like an elephant when it's going off. A little anticlimactic. So this is the RC aircraft that we dropped those parachute probes out back in 2009. The problem with this is we fly about 5 miles ahead of the storm and drop those probes out, and they ride the inflow into the circulation. But with centrifugal acceleration, they get flung out, and it's very difficult to get inside the tornado. So the grounding of our aerial assault is a good thing because it motivates the design of the air cannon. Those work a lot better than getting probes inside. But this was still good because then we could compare the data from outside the tornado versus that inside. And our first deployment was deployed on June 17, 2009. The same day our window was blown out earlier on, but it took down a few small tornadoes. I'll show you the clip from that now. And then I'll show you an animation in Google Earth.